The Starr and D'Amico Show brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. You know, you and I, over the course of what feels like forever now, everything gets kind of melded into one because we do daily Habs content on this channel about the 2C discussion. But I want to pivot away from that for a second and put this on the table. What about getting pro help for the defensive side in the aftermath of Caden Gooley having a terrible setback for this guy now?
Mhm.
Abductor surgery. He's out for a couple of months here. Um, what about that proposition? Looking at management and saying, you know what? Not so much Adam Engstrom, but trying to make a deal to get some NHL talent to round out the defensive core here, Marco. Where's that today? Where's that in the discussion point?
I don't think the Canadians are there, to be honest with you. You look at the way that their roster is played out. I mean, I think they're perfectly comfortable with who they have on defense. Could they use more experience? Probably, but they're gaining experience by the day at this point, and I think that eventually kind of helps them get out of this. The biggest issue for me is not the six defensemen that they carry.
Mm-hmm.
It's the structure. It's how they play.
Right.
It's the system defensively. Like, I was noticing this against the Boston Bruins. I've noticed it, in the last 2 weeks, and you can go back as far as 2 years now, but I don't feel like the Canadians play man-to-man coverage the way that they should. It's almost like this hybrid, like zone defense and then a little bit of man-to-man. They don't really collapse on the players and they feel like they overstretch themselves defensively. And I think you notice that more and more the more you watch the Canadians play against tougher opponents, more physical opponents, because it almost feels like they get overwhelmed in that case. I don't think it's a personnel issue. I really,
Mhm.
really don't. And I think that we wouldn't really be having this conversation if Caden Gooley were healthy, but he's not. And
No.
so that goes to show you where things are at organizationally. But I think it's structure. I think the way that they attack open ice, the Canadians leave way too much open ice to the opposition, way too much room for them to move. And then you look at what the way that the Canadians get countered in the offensive zone, they're suffocated. They're pushed to the outsides, and then they're clamped by two guys. The Canadians don't play that kind of style. It's almost like they're chasing the play defensively, and I think that's what hurts them more. I don't see them spending assets to go and get a veteran defenseman because there are quite a few teams that would pounce to try and get a
Mhm.
veteran defenseman right now.
I guess in the one counter argument in my mind, when it comes to the personnel issue, right, is the lack of potency on the power play, throwing it back. There's so much perimeter play. I mean, they tried Noah Dobson Saturday night, trying to get that shot from the point, trying something a little bit more diverse. I think Alex Carrier is struggling a little bit. They arguably have, two seventh defensemen and Jaden Struble and Arbor Jacki playing, every day, which is a direct cause because of the Caden Gooley injury. And so for me, it's like almost like it was a layered reason why maybe they need to look at that and reprioritize. When you talk about how they're positioned, I mean, it drives me nuts. I keep preaching to you about get to the net, get to the net. Lack of net front presence. They have a lot of aggressive, fast defensemen.
Yeah.
I don't know if they need that veteran guy, like a younger version of David Savard, just to give you an example of someone who can clog up the front of the net, block some shots, move some bodies. They're 10th in the league in 61 goals against. That's 10th worst in the National Hockey League. And when we look at the team's overall goals against average, they're 25th in the National Hockey League. I mean, they're obviously slumping, and the numbers now are reflecting that. I
Yeah.
just want to
I
bring it to
mean,
the table about getting that veteran guy that can play a steady stay-at-home game reliably, Marco.
when the goalie is playing well and still allowing 3 goals or more, it's on the defensive structure. And it's not even
Yeah.
when we say defensive structure, and this is where I really want to bring it.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot to do with the way that the defensemen defend, but I think that it has a lot more to do with how the centers support the defensemen. And I
Okay.
think that's where the Canadians are losing their battles because when you look at the way that if you looked at like the Bruins game, for example, the Bruins, yes, Marat Kuznutinov is playing on the top line, and he doesn't have a large body of work when it comes to being a top six center in the NHL. Granted, yes, but they have a solid center depth, right? Like Fraser Minton is playing quite well. Pavel Zacha is still in there. Um, they have depth at center. And you look the same thing at with Dallas. They have depth at center. And you look at the same thing with the LA Kings. They have depth at center. So when you're playing teams that are strong down the middle, or at least have adequate depth down the middle, well,
Yeah.
when you don't, or at least when you don't have players today that have the situational maturity to be able to play low in the defensive zone and then have your wingers play higher to counter the defenseman, that's where they get discombobulated. And that I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's where the system is lost defensively because the wingers don't play high enough. The center doesn't cover the middle of the ice. He's either too high or too low. And so they can run roughshod. So you look at that goal from David Pastrnak against the Boston Bruins, the first goal, and they just cycled the Canadians in that exact way where he was there were two players that weren't essentially covered, and
Agreed.
it led to Pasternak goal. So I stay by this. I think and not to like throw tomatoes at them. I'm pointing this out because they themselves know that this needs to improve. But this is a systems issue. This is a coaching issue
Mm-hmm.
because we've seen this team defend the Bruins. We've seen this team defend the Stars. We've seen this team defend the Kings. They can they can beat them. But right now, defensively, they're just getting overwhelmed. And it's a confidence issue. One of the biggest gripes I had was on Friday. The Canadians decided to call off practice, make it optional,
Yeah.
and do more gym work.
Yes.
And part of me was, buddy, you're 0 for 10 on the power play, and you're getting, severely overwhelmed on the rush defensively. I'd be working on that personally. At a certain point in time, you can do all the video in the world, but you're gonna have to put it in practice.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think that's where the Canadians are at. And so that's why I do not feel like the Canadians are at the point where they need to bring in anybody. I think that they're going to have to trust their coaching staff first and foremost to be able to right the ship and bring back the basics of being able to do man-to-man
Mhm.
coverage.
This is what we talked about, a few times already when we were talking about the youngest team on average in the National Hockey League, in the Montreal Canadiens, and Martin St. Louis under a little bit more pressure. I like the point you raise about situational play, structure. I agree wholeheartedly with your take from Friday that we discussed live. There were what Bolduc, Demidov, Hudson, of course, like a hand, like I think that was the list of guys who were actually on the ice. Everybody else was lifting weights or in the video room or whatever. I think it's a money point you
Mhm.
bring up. And there was also, if we go back to Saturday night after the Bruins took a 2-1 lead, they get on the power play And to me, that was it. Look how much time and space. Like you talked about the first goal where Montembeault is
Well,
sucked right out of his position. The Arvidsson
yeah.
goal. I mean, brother. I mean, how many times have I told you? It's like that's the most valuable piece of real estate, and this guy just parked his bus there and was untouched, and then had a free shot to the net from Pasternak, and Zaka found him with a great feed. But there was Arvidsson, man, a man on an island, bro. Like, I mean, that to me just reinforces your point about structural issues in their own end.
Well, if you want to talk on the PK, I mean, the PK has been doing rather well of late, so I will give them, kudos in that regard. On that play, it was just that the box was widened too much, right? And so you had coverage on Zaka, but because when you can't play man to man coverage on a PK, you can't, right? Because
No.
then there's going to be one free man every
Yeah, but
single
they
time.
chased the puck a lot. Like, look where Matheson was so high up there. They're just
And
following the
so
puck a lot.
that's the idea. So they're too aggressive in trying to exert pressure on the power play from their defense. Their wingers, the forwards should be the ones pressing higher up in the zone. But one of the things that they do when they do that, when the defenseman leaves to go up, the rest of the forwards, the rest of the players on the ice basically form a line, right? You got one guy at the top, one guy in the middle, one guy down low. And then what happens is the puck comes back down to Zaka. The defenseman comes in, the other two forwards are too high up, and the slot is completely open. So again, structural issues, structural things to look at. My biggest thing, and I think I want to go back to it. I asked Lane Hudson on Saturday night because he was beating himself up, said he had to be better, and really, I kind of pointed it out to him. I was like, well, you know, one of the reasons why the Canadians' power play has been anemic of late is because they stopped moving.
Yeah.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't think Cole Caulfield in the bumper has ever worked.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
I'm talking Wisconsin. I'm talking Laval Rocket. I'm talking Montreal Canadiens. I'm talking, World Juniors. It has never worked. It doesn't make any sense to put him there. And so by putting players in their spots and they're static, it's very easy to defend because at that point you could just play man-to-man coverage. The Canadians, and this is something that I was told by a pro scout on Saturday night. The Canadians are one of the most, when they're not moving, they're one of the easiest teams to defend. It's
I
when they're
get it.
moving that they're dangerous. When their speed
Mm-hmm.
is on point and they're dangerous. So I spoke to Lane Hudson about this, and he kind of responded with with a smile. He's like, "Well, we were really good, and we just got to get back to what made us good. And what made them good is that they weren't static for a period of time. They kept moving and moving and moving, and now." It's a sign of a lack of confidence and gripping your stick too tight and not wanting to deviate from the plan. But the reality is on the power play, the more you deviate from the norm, the more creative you get, the more you destabilize the other team. So again, I still believe that this is not a personnel issue. Could the Canadians make a trade to make themselves better? Absolutely. Is it imminent? I don't think so. We know that the Canadians attempted to pitch to David Kampf to
Yeah.
join the Montreal Canadiens, ultimately signed with the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
I think that from what I'm being told, it was pretty much in the bag that he was going to go and sign with Vancouver. Montreal just kind of tried to come in and see if they can get their shot, especially after the Alex Newhook injury. Didn't work out, and I understand it. I think he's going to get a better opportunity in Vancouver to play higher in the lineup. So with that said, I think the Canadians know that they need to add some depth or that they would be in need of some free depth when available. So on that end, I think, yes, they could definitely use some help. But on the other end, and I think this is where the more important thing is, they're not going to make any panic moves.
No, agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
They're not going to make any panic moves. And I almost be willing to bet that they're going to try out a bunch of guys in Laval first
Hmm.
before attempting to make any moves. But I don't expect the Canadians to make short-sighted, quick moves for guys just so they can better improve their situation this season. I don't think they're of that world. If the Canadians ultimately end up having to tank this season, and they'll do so, and then they'll make decisions accordingly. I don't see them making the big trades or forcing the big trades right now. unless it's for a player that could be sticking around for 3, 4, 5 years.
I think that's well said. Big shout out to all of our sponsors, and a big thanks to Little Bear at littlebearonline.com, your destination for all of your pets' needs, food, toys, clothing. The Black Friday extravaganza on now. You can shop online. You got delivery, curbside pickup. And of course, Chuck and Evie and their staff care about your pet as much as you do. That's what makes them so special. This is a family owned business, and we thank them for their ongoing support. And as always, thanks for liking and subscribing to the show.